Chelsea have slapped their vice-captain with a 2-match suspension. Yes, Enzo Fernandez has been suspended for the next 2 games, as revealed by their head coach, Liam Rosenior, during a press conference on Friday in his pre-match interview ahead of their game against Port Vale that will kick off, I think, about 7:30 p.m. on Saturday in the FA Cup quarterfinals at home. So, welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much to all our new subscribers. And those of you that haven't already, please go ahead and click that subscribe button, but also turn your notifications on. Now, some may have seen this coming, others may have not. I wasn't one of those that saw this coming, but Chelsea have slapped their club vice-captain, Enzo Fernandez, with a 2-match suspension. Therefore, he won't be in the matchday squad for their quarter-final game against Port Vale, as well as their game against Manchester City in the Premier League. That will be next weekend. And the reason for that is simple. The 25-year-old Argentine international has been accused of flirting with Chelsea's European rivals in Real Madrid. For those of you that care to remember, after Chelsea were eliminated from the UEFA Champions League at the hands of PSG, who thrashed them by 8-2 on aggregate score over 2 legs, the former Benfica midfielder was asked about his future, and he said that will be determined after the World Cup. He did say that they have 8 games to concentrate on, referring to their remaining fixtures then at the time in the Premier League, since which they have lost the one against Everton and still now have 7 to go. So he did say he wasn't sure where his future lay. He said he wanted to wait until the the end of the World Cup, and that did not trap officials or senior figures within the Chelsea ranks, according to Liam Rosenior. He said, because he said he's crossed a line. He crossed the line. That's the word he used while speaking to the press on Friday. So while speaking to the press, he said, we spoke with Enzo an hour ago. That was Liam saying on Friday. As a football club, with me, as part of that process, we have made a decision. He won't be available for tomorrow's game versus Port Vale, and he won't be available for Manchester City on Sunday. For Enzo, it's disappointing to speak that way. What I will say about Enzo is, in terms of him as a character, as a person, I've got no bad words to say about him. I don't know to say, but I think a line was crossed in terms of our culture and what we want to build. So we had to make a sanction, and that was a decision we've made. As a character, as a person, as a player, I have the utmost respect for Enzo Fernandez, what he's achieved in his career, the player that he is. He's frustrated because he wanted Chelsea Football Club to succeed this year. So those were some of the things that he did say. I remember Enzo Fernandez, I think, is one of the club's, biggest signings, signed in January 2023 in the aftermath of the FIFA World Cup in 2022 that was won by Argentina. They are signed from Benfica for £107 million. And whereas it is true that Real Madrid have expressed a certain level of interest in signing him, he went on to say, while away on international duty, that he would love to live in Spain one day. He went on to compare the city of Madrid to Buenos Aires. That's, I think, the capital of Argentina or something. He went to draw those comparisons, and therefore reports had come out to suggest that some players were not happy about his leadership within the dressing room. So, and then in the aftermath of him saying those things, Marco Cucurella also had his own interview with The Athletic during the international break, and he also criticized Chelsea's transfer strategy. He spoke about literally the club's obsession with young players, and he said they needed to strike a balance between experience and young players in wanting to win major silverware in terms of where the project is destined. Both players did question, at least in their respective interviews, not understanding the school of thought or the decision that the club undertook to arrive to the sacking or parting ways of Enzo Maresca, who Liam Rosenior has since repressed. So he equally acknowledged that Liam Rosenior to speaking with Marco Cucurella for about half an hour in his office. So he said, I had a fantastic conversation with Mark yesterday, meaning on Thursday, half an hour in my office. I want players. I've said to them from day one, if they got an issue with how we do things, to come and speak to me and to speak to sporting directors. My disappointment in Mark's interview is where it went to. I think he should have spoken to us first about the things that he's feeling. I want players to feel like they can speak openly and honestly for the benefit of the club. The conversations we've had with Reche James, that's why Reche has signed a new contract, because he believes in where we are going. So now let's be honest and be fair to these players. Whereas Liam Rasinia is the man in charge, is now the captain of the Chelsea ship, part of their dissatisfaction or the players' grievance has little to do with Liam Rasinia as a coach. It has to do with the club, with how they are running affairs, but more importantly, the sacking of Enzo Maresca. That hit to the core of some of these players. We're talking about players that had been in his stewardship for about a year and a half, during which they won the UEFA Conference League as well as the FIFA Club World Cup. Now, when you bear that in mind, because Marco Correa alludes to that, and he said we were building something that if we needed to change the system of play, we understood what needed to be done. And you come in the middle of the season, you change that. He said if you wanted to make a change, ideally you should be making that change at the end of the season. And for lack of a better word, I am one of those that did disagree with Chelsea with the decision to part ways with Enzo Maresca. Regardless of what appeared to be a broken relationship in terms of the hierarchy between Enzo Maresca, the medical department, and his bosses, I did not think that the relationship between that cohort was beyond repairable damage, that they could not move on with Enzo Maresca, at least until the end of the season, and then assess, his situation. Of course, part of their anger as Chelsea with Enzo Maresca was that he had informed the club that he had spoken to representatives of Manchester City under the possibility of repressing Pep Guardiola should he leave Manchester City. So there was that element to it. But nonetheless, he should have stayed, in my humble opinion, until at least the end of the season. And so Liam Rasinia comes in, and for the first games, he did acknowledge just as much that he tried not to change too many things. He tried to stay with the blueprint of Enzo Maresca. Now, as time goes on, of course, he's going to tweak a few things here and there based on his preference or what he believes in that can work. And unfortunately, at the time of tweaking those things, that included swapping out the goalkeeper, Robert Sanchez, for Philippe Jorgensen, is where they burnt their fingers the most, losing to PSG by 5 goals to 2 at Parc des Princes. Subsequently, Robert Sanchez is brought back in, low on confidence, had his own errors. That was, I think, in their loss against Everton. But prior to that, they had lost already to PSG by 3 goals to 0. Those players looked abject. They looked like they had lost their faith. You could read their body language. They felt a bit of disappointment on their shoulders, but that disappointment did not just come as of those results, really. It's something that stems from the decision that was taken as far back as January to part ways with Enzo Maresca. So that bit of frustration is just coming out now. But I also did acknowledge this, that had Chelsea been winning, especially in that period of 10 days where they go on to lose to PSG, home and away, lose to Newcastle, and then subsequently losing to Everton, sort of left them a bit apprehensive or unsure or questioning about where this project of Chelsea is heading. And like Marco Correa, I did question the club's strategy of signing predominantly young players. Willian Estaval, Alejandro Garnacho, Jamie Gittens, Jovan Quenda is arriving, Jorel Hato, Joshua Chepong is there, Mamadou Sarr, who was signed from Strasbourg. You have the Andre Santoses, they're also young, Darius Sogo. So basically, you have so many young players in that team. And yet we're talking about a team that sometimes needs leadership that can come from only experience of senior players that are maybe anywhere between 25 and 30 or 32, and they oftentimes lack that in the respective departments. In the back line, you could see leadership is oftentimes lacking. In that midfield, sometimes, yes, Caicedo will try to offer it, Enzo Fernandez will try to offer it, but then up front, there are gaps in there. Pedro Neto doesn't offer it. Joao Pedro does not offer it. You do not expect it from Liam Delap, who has not worked out as a striker, who they signed in the summer from Ipswich for £30 million. So really, those players who are hungry for success, who thought that they were perhaps headed in the right direction with Enzo Maresca, ought to question some of these things. And that's why Enzo Fernandez has been suspended for the next 2 games. He won't be absent. However, my question then, or my conclusion to this comes with the question of what then it means for his future. Because while the club may appreciate the spirit of taking this stance in terms of disciplining their players, how about on the player's side? If he does think he feels justified in his words or in his assessment of the situation, would he try to push a move away from Chelsea? Because given that he's being suspended, was there an apology to the team, to Liam Rasinha, to the hierarchy, to the sporting director, that kind of thing? Was it there? If it wasn't there, or if it is not going to be there, then you may sort of have a situation where we get to the summer and he thinks he's talking to his agent or representatives and saying, get me out of this club. I do not care how many years I still have left of my contract. Do everything you can to get me out of this club because it's not heading in the direction that I thought it is heading. And we're talking about a vice captain here. So do you think that a situation could unfold in the summer? I think it is a possibility that that could be the case, or at least fences can be mended and then he stays for the foreseeable future. Your views and thoughts down in the comment section. Stay blessed and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now. A blessed Easter ahead. Thank you.